Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wassalam ala Rasulullah. We read really the fifth principle, Al-Irada, the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is from the 40 principles of the religion. And this chapter is kind of problematic because in English we have 3 pages practically, and in Arabic, again, in the notes I said that when I talk about the Arabic text, I talk about the Dar al-Minhaj edition, Al-Arba'in fi Usul al-Din. The number of pages is really does not match really what we have in English. So we have about 15 pages, 15 pages compared to 3 pages in English. And the reason for this is that the author, we don't talk about Imam Al-Ghazali, I talk about the copier, that will be more appropriate to say. Simply said that Imam Al-Ghazali permitted writing the Arba'in, the 40 principles of religion, independently, though it's part of Jawahir al-Quran. But then, obviously, he inserts a very large text that is not really originally from the Arba'in, the 40 principles of religion. And this is why he says at one point, after he's done انتهى كلامه, then he continues, وقال الإمام حجة الإسلام الغزالي. And if Imam Ghazali is the only author, we would not use that this phrase. And at any rate, I think there are other problematic details when we reach quoting Zamakhshari. Talking about Al-Kashaf of Zamakhshari will shed more light, but rather more problems, if you will, about such inclusion of the text of the Zamakhshari for more than one reason. But let's basically wait and see. All things in existence are the objects of His will, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will, and He is the planner of everything that occurs. Somewhere else in the Imam Ghazali says that everything in the universe is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the essence of the real definition of Tawheed. Tawheed أن ترى كل شيء من الله عز وجل. There is nothing that happens in His reign and dominion, whether much or little, small or big, good or bad, beneficial or harmful, faith or disbelief, knowledge or ignorance, victory or defeat, gain or loss, obedience or disobedience, except that it is with His decree, determination, judgment, and will. Whatever He wills is, and whatever He does not will shall never be. ما شاء الله كان وما لم يشاء لم يكن. Neither the glance of an onlooker nor any whimsical thought is beyond His will. Rather, He is the beginning and the end. That's now we have a difference. It should be, of course, He's the beginning and. But the Arabic is al-mubda. basically he begins the beginner, if you will, in the batina, with a capital B, in the sense of everything is initiated uh, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-Mu'id, rather, it's not the end here. It's not like Al-Awwal wal-Akhir here. It's not the Alpha and the Omega. It's basically the Mu'id, that he would also permits the repetition of whether you talk about natural phenomenon or something else, even in Surah Al-Isra, for example. And if you return, basically, if you return, meaning if you return to committing the sin, the corruption on earth, we return to punishing you. Here we have this kind of i'adah, but also mu'id, in the sense everything in the universe, human beings, all of them will be uh, dar al-ma'ad, that basically they will be uh, resurrected. That's also a possible meaning. The doer of whatever he wills. There is no one who can reject his judgment. There is no one who can reject his judgment. No nullifier of his decree. No refuge for a slave from disobedience except in his providence. This is why uh, فَفِرُّوا إِلَى اللَّهِ. Basically, everything that you run away from it except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you run to Allah, from Allah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have no choice. No refuge for a slave from disobedience except in his providence and mercy, and no ability for the slave to obey him except with his support and will. If all humanity, jinn, angels, and demons, were to join forces to move or to stop any particle in the universe, they would be incapable of doing so without his will and desire. His will subsists in his essence, along with the sum of his attributes. He has never ceased to be described as such, eternally willful of the existence of all things in the times that he determined. He brings them into existence in their appointed times as he willed from eternity, without any earliness or lateness. Rather, they happen according to his knowledge and will, without any substitution or change. He has planned every matter, but not with sequenced thoughts or by waiting for time, the way we do it. For his reason, nothing preoccupies him from one affair to another. We cannot do more than one thing, uh, despite the popularity of the claim of multitasking and saying that women can really multitask. No one has uh, more than one heart in his, internally, in his or her chest, in the sense that you cannot really tend to two things exactly at the same time. You might shuttle, you might fluctuate, you might alternate, but you cannot do two things at the same time. And this restriction for us does not apply to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For this reason, nothing preoccupies him from one affair to another. He tends to all these supplications, to the affairs of all those 8 billion people at once, and not only those 8 billion people. Imagine all those, billions of creatures that roam the universe, the sustenance, everything that is allocated in the universe. And in fact, the creation of the universe is greater than the creation of the human being, and that's Quranic. Know that this position is very slippery, and many have stumbled. For a complete investigation of it is drawn from the tide of tremendous ocean, the mighty ocean of divine oneness, and they seek it through research and debate. But Allah's Messenger ﷺ has said, no people have gone astray after being guided, except that they were given to argumentation. Such people will adduce verses of the Quran and interpret them, although they are not qualified to interpret. If achieving the level of interpretation was possible for just anyone, the Prophet ﷺ would have never said, supplicating for Ibn Abbas, "O Allah, make him understand the religion and teach him interpretation." اللهم فقهه في الدين وعلمه التأويل. Neither would Yaqub have said to Yusuf alayhi salam, alayhim as-salam, وكذلك يجتبيك ربك ويعلمك من تأويل الحديث. In this way your Lord has chosen you and teaches you the interpretation of dreams, of visions. And now we have the problem of mentioning Al-Kashaf. And the text here, the author of Al-Kashaf said in his explanation of this verse, he intended by this the meaning of Allah's books and the ways of the prophets, alayhim salam, and those points and objectives therein which are obscure or ambiguous to people. You, that is Yusuf alayhi salam, will explain and expound upon them and direct people to the wisdom found within them. The reason many slip up here is because they follow those who follow what is ambiguous from the Quran. But before continuing, let me simply try to say what's problematic with this, with mentioning Al-Kashaf. Al-Kashaf is a book of interpretation, a book of tafsir by Zamakhshari, who was born in 1074 and died in 1143. And just, so that the listeners would understand what's at stake here is that Imam Al-Ghazali died in the year 1111. And this means that that's basically 32 years after the death. The death of Zamakhshari is after the death of Imam Al-Ghazali. The difference between them took about 32 years. Now, that's not really a serious problem. When Imam Al-Ghazali, the date itself, could it be the case that Imam Al-Ghazali had a copy of Al-Kashaf. Let's put this way. I have read that Al-Kashaf was completed in 1134, and that's practically 23 years after Imam Al-Ghazali. It would require so many things, though you might find that there are sources that would say that they met, but that's not the issue. Zamakhshari was born in Khawarizm and passed away in Khawarizm. He wrote several books. Another aspect is that, which is the more serious issue, is that Zamakhshari was a Mu'tazili. That will be also another problem, though it does not really preclude totally, it does not preclude really quoting him. But time-wise, it's problematic. The space in which Zamakhshari dwelled, for the most part, is not the space where Imam Ghazali dwelled, for the most part. But again, it's finding a text that says that it was completed, the book was completed in 1134. So it is really this student, maybe, of Al-Ghazali, who basically he copied this particular book, or at least circulated it independently, and he inserted this text, and also the in the notes of طبع دار المنهاج, the Dar al-Minhaj edition, page 6 in the notes, in the footnote in 62, it says من هنا إلى صاد إلى صفحة 75 زيادة مقحمة في صلب النص، من نسختين متأخرتين، وهي غير موجود في إحياء علوم الدين، وهي ملتقطة من بعض كتب الإمام الغزالي لا، هي ليست فقط من بعض الكتب الإمام الغزالي. So the idea, let me at least say that for the sake of the students who probably and hopefully one day they will become interested in Imam Ghazali to the degree that they will dig up this text. It says in Arabic in the footnote, from page 62, this is the Dar al-Minhaj edition, until page 75, this text was inserted. And part of the English would be also the same. I mean, it's not really part of the original text of Imam Al-Ghazali. I think this is very important to realize. And I have noticed also that there are those who discuss this online, why Imam Al-Ghazali would include the Zamakhshari here. This would basically solve the problem. I hope that they will become aware of such, of this particular explanation. Okay. So it continues with the text of the Zamakhshari. The reason many slip up here is because they follow those who follow what is ambiguous from the Quran, seeking tribulation and seeking its interpretation. However, no one knows its interpretation except Allah, and those who are firmly grounded in knowledge. And this basically, one might think of the verses from Surah Al-Imran. Okay. وما يعلم تأويله إلا الله والراسخون في العلم. Okay, so this is almost a reference to these particular verses, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will know the absolute meaning uh, of every single thing where we have differed. Uh, because the intention of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that there is one in certain in particular text, the intention should be one really. Uh, it does not allow room for multiple interpretations. So, but we might differ still, uh, like the difference amongst the scholars about the word qitra in the story of Dhul Qarnayn, when the iron melted, he asked them to bring him qitra. The interpretations, at least we have three interpretations. One is that qitra is copper, and the second interpretation is lead, and the third interpretation is the modern one, it's carbon, so that it would create stainless steel, that it would last longer. It does not rust. That's the understanding. Or basically, lamastum nisa, that when you touch women, we have at least three interpretations. The Hanafi is a school. It's practically a metaphor for intimate relationship between spouses. At least one opinion of Shafi'i is that it's really, strictly speaking, it's the touching, the very simple touch between male and female uh, uh, who are not mahram. So it's not when you kiss the hand or the forehead of your mom or your niece, and the third one, the Maliki, is the in between, not the casual touch, but the touch with intention, uh, such as foreplay or what have you. Okay, so we have three interpretations. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows, and also He enabled those who are rasikhun fil ilm to know the meaning. It's aided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, facilitated, uh, enlightening, their hearts, uh, leading them in knowledge to that uh, to that degree of understanding. At any rate, so those who are firmly grounded in knowledge, الراسخون في العلم, really, these people are not firmly grounded in knowledge. Rather, they are inadequate and incapable. Other than these, because of their inadequacy, they cannot perceive the reality of this matter. Thus, they are restrained from plunging into the depths of what is beyond their capability by the same harness that restrains the rest of the inadequate. They are told, "Be silent, you were not made for this." لا يسأل عما يفعل وهم يسألون. He is not asked about what he does, but they will be asked. It is narrated on the authority of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh, the Messenger of Allah came out sallallahu alaihi wasallam to us while we were debating about predetermination, qadar. Predetermination, sometimes they use predestination, and I found that in the book The Vision of Islam by Murata and Chittick, they use allotment. Okay, they use allotment. At any rate, the intention is to reflect the meaning of qadar. He ﷺ became extremely angry to the point that his noble face turned red. He said, "Is this what you have been commanded? I have been commanded to do. Is this what I was sent to you with? Those before you were destroyed when they took to debating about this matter. I am determined that you will not debate about this." So the Prophet ﷺ did not want them to discuss this. It's the best thing is to, what do you do? It's accept the qadar. There was really uh, a study that really it looked into different, members of different faiths, different communities, different cultures, and uh, I did not really read the study, but these results that were published, they spoke about about the Muslim community all over the world being uh, like amongst the most uh, satisfied, if you will, and they related this to their belief. They have that sense of tranquility. They have. We're not saying that every Muslim that Muslims do not go through moments of stress, and sometimes there has to be some stress. Otherwise, how you are going to work, how you are going to act on things if this kind of stress does not prepare you for action. But the overall all meaning is about really believing in the system of belief, if you will. So people who stop believing, okay, one way or the other, they go through psychological hardship more than who believe in general. But amongst those who believe, it seems that Muslims are ranking very high. And I remember a long time ago, there was a talk about acceptance of certain acceptance of permanent, permanent chronic diseases, for example, or cancer and what have you, amongst the Muslim patients. It's I think it's related to the notion of accepting qadar. Then it was followed immediately. It is also narrated on the 30th of Ja'far, who said, "I once said to Yunus ibn Ubayd, I came across the people disputing about predetermination, qadar. He said, if they had any concern for their sins, they would not have been disputing about predetermination. Like they should busy themselves with something else and worry that it would also either you should worry about your sins. In this case, Imam Al-Ghazali says in the book of repentance, you should go back to the moment you became you reached puberty one way or the other. So from the moment you became a responsible person, and then count every sin, like take account of every sin that you have committed. And then later on he says that it's going to be impossible, but it will at least modify one's behavior. One should not add more sins. And he also teaches us how to rectify this situation as much as possible by repentance, by also doing good deeds that are the opposite of what one has committed during all these years. Such preoccupation will prevent one from engaging in such a discussion. But let me put it this way: not really amongst this is not to prohibit. It's not a prohibition in the absolute sense. Otherwise, those companions will be, of course, committing a sin. We would be committing a sin by talking about this right now, but that's not really the idea. The idea is that sometimes it's necessary to explain things uh, to the best of our knowledge. And there are serious differences between different schools, whether talk about the Jabriya, the Qadriya, the Mu'tazila, there are differences. The lamps of some have been filled with the light taken from Allah's light. Its oil was pure, nearly shining on its own, without fire ever touching it. This is basically from Surah An-Nur. It was as light shining upon light, illuminating all realms before them with their Lord's light. Uh, it's basically the verse الله نور السماوات والأرض مثل نور كمشكاة فيها مصباح المصباح في زجاجة الزجاج كأنها كوكب دري until basically he reaches the description of the olive tree. That the oil itself is almost shining on its own, light upon light, نور على نور. They perceived these matters as they truly are, and it was said to them, follow the example of Allah's conduct and be silent. If predetermination is mentioned, then refrain from speaking. So إذا ذكر القدر فأمسكوا. For this reason, Omar refrained from speaking when asked about predetermination. He said to the questioner, it is a deep sea that you cannot penetrate. When the question was repeated, he said, it is a dark path that you cannot tread. When it was repeated for a third time, he said, it is Allah's secret that He has concealed from you, so do not attempt to expose it. Whosoever wishes to know the secrets of the divine realm must adhere to it, to its gate, with love, sincerity, and truthfulness. He must turn away from his adversaries and avoid obeying them or seeking to please them. إنما يوفى الصابرون أجرهم بغير حساب. Indeed, the patient ones are given their reward without account. I think the English translation also picked some of the inserted texts in the Arabic editions. At least this edition here of Dar al-Minhaj. And just in case someone reads the Arabic text, there's also another problem in mentioning this. It goes like this: ذكر الإمام مولانا علاء الدين رحمه الله في شرحه للمصابيح الفرق بين القضاء والقدر. Some people would say that the Maulana is problematic, but really it's the book. And if we talk about Al-Masabih, it was written by Imam Al-Baghawi, though here في شرحه للمصابيح, then even it's really extremely problematic which book of Sharh al-Masabih. But of course with Kitab al-Masabih itself by Imam al-Baghawi, and he died 516. and that's few years after Imam Al-Ghazali, and he would not really say Maulana about someone. First of all, again, it's the commentary on Al-Masabih of Al-Baghawi, which would be really much later on. So, for example, if we talk about Manhal al-Yanabiya fi Sharh al-Masabih, that was completed according to what I have read, basically in the year 762. That's the commentary on al-Masabih. But al-Masabih itself, it's the Imam Baghawi, and he died, as said, 5 years after Imam al-Ghazali, and one would not say quote and to your somebody who could be your own student. That's also a problem. It's not impossible, but it's not really the norm, I would say. But I could not solve the problem of the Maulana Alauddin fi Sharh al-Masabih. It is more serious than it looks in terms of the origins, but one finds at least some comfort in the idea that from page 61, 62 to page 75, that this text was totally inserted and it's not originally there. So let me put it this way. The next principle, the sixth principle here, hearing and seeing, Sama wal Basar, we talk about 10 lines only, hardly so. The one before the Irada was about knowledge. Again, you talk about almost 10 verses. So for a text to jump and become so big quantitatively also could raise a question at any rate. I think this is enough. We have highlighted the problematic parts that should not be there in the text, that it was written by somebody else. And the unlikely case of Imam Al-Ghazali really quoting, of course, not only unlikely, one might say even impossible the way we have put it. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.